Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Sinkevicius. Now for 2 minutes, Mr. Wietzig.
Danke, Herr Präsident. Vážený pan komisár. Program LIFE nás...
Thank you, President. The LIFE program makes us think of the protection of nature and the conservation of species. It's also focused on the transformation of clean energy in recent times. So in comparison to the previous period, we're talking about a doubling of funding, which is a positive shift. However, I would like to emphasize that this is a reduction of 18 million euros compared to the original Commission proposal. That's less than the Parliament asked for. So this doesn't sound like a lot, but this 18 million euros was a sum we used in Germany to establish a Natura project by 2030. So that there's a relatively small amount of money available under LIFE, and a lot has to be done for Natura areas to improve forest areas and to protect various species such as the black grouse and the marsh turtle. The black grouse bird has basically been eradicated in large swathes of Slovakia because of forestry practices that are still considered to be sustainable. So Slovakia was even taken to court by the European Commission because of that issue with the black grouse. The same thing is happening in Spain. The heavily subsidized planting of eucalyptus and pine led to the eradication of the lynx. And luckily, this animal has been saved by LIFE projects. So I am a big fan of the LIFE program. I really appreciate what it can do. It would be good if other sectoral policies could be used, linked with LIFE, in order to prevent climate change and drastic biodiversity loss. Thank you very much. We now hear from Mr. Ronai for a minute and a half.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, Mr. Commissioner, the last year has been spent with the worries about COVID, and that has shown how important it is to take care of our health and of our environment in order to be more resilient. The European Union has this fantastic program, LIFE, the LIFE program. This focuses on environmental and climate targets. This helps a lot in order to achieve our environmental goals. It helps green transition because one of its objective is a transition to clean energy. Therefore, it was a real pleasure when I learned that this program is to be continued. The other important merit is that now there is a new EU program that is well known because local governments and NGOs use it, and therefore it gets to the citizens who need it the most. So the European citizens can feel that the EU is there for them. We would need more programs like that, and that is quite straightforward. We do get some criticism saying that European funds are not channeled to where it should be, and unlike it is in this program, in the LIFE program. So the LIFE program is a wonderful example of what we can achieve. So I welcome it, and I hope we can continue in this trend. In these projects, in the LIFE projects, we do not need any other financial investment. Therefore, we do have to be innovative, courageous, and create and establish other projects like LIFE in order to reach our citizens directly, because then they will know how important climate is, environment is, and how important they are as citizens in Europe. So I'd like to thank everyone, every colleague who helped the LIFE project in the previous mandate and in this mandate, and I encourage everyone to support this program and to support this courageous program so that we can create other programs like that. Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank, Herr Kollege Ron.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ronay. 1 minute, Mr. Horschig.
Danke sehr, sehr geehrter Vorsitzender, dear Honourable Commissioner, dear colleagues. I highly appreciate the outcome of the trilogue, and I would like to thank the co-legislator and especially the rapporteur, Nils Torvalds, for the great work. LIFE is a flagship programme for the environment. It is the only tiny part of our budget that is purely aimed at protecting biodiversity, climate, and the transformation to circular economy. As beautiful LIFE programme is, it's only a small part of the MFF, and it's clearly not enough to meet the commitment of spending 10% of the budget to biodiversity. That is why we need to ensure that on the other parts of the MFF, we deliver on the biodiversity and, of course, also on the climate objectives, and, of course, deliver on the transition to circular economy. But besides policy incoherence, the threat to LIFE is also the annual arbitrary budget cuts by the Commission. These are unacceptable, and I expect that the Commission will finish with this practice. As the European Parliament, we'll watch closely. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Herr Kollege.
Thank you very much, Mr. Horschig. Ms. Sodone.
Grazie.
Thank you very much. It's important to push forward with programs that protect biodiversity, the environment, and our regions, but at the same time, I believe it's important to develop these goals without putting ideology into these programs. The EU has made a political choice. It has decided to allocate at least 30% of the EU's expenditure on climate action. So if you've got 100% being the total expenditure, we're talking about 30% going to climate action against the backdrop of a pandemic. Yes, I'm not saying that the climate isn't important, but frankly speaking, I don't think it is a priority. LIFE, which is the program we're talking about today, could be the umpteenth tool to keep tabs on how member states spend their money, and especially at this tricky moment. Now, the member states, in order to get EU funds, are going to be obliged, let's face it, to spend them on projects that perhaps aren't tailored to the needs of that particular country. As I said, we are in favor of actions to protect our environment, but I think this program focuses a bit too much on climate and it forgets about other environmental aspects that it was thought up for in the beginning. The Commission has, I feel, has looked more at slogans rather than specific choices. Now there are new green taxes and other choices that will be a burden for consumers. Now, to reduce pollution, improve the transition and create more jobs, EU policy should focus more on technological and industrial development that will help both the quality of the environment and jobs. That's our suggestion. I know that no one will listen to us, so it's probable that no one will listen to us, but it's important to push ahead. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Frau Kollegin Sardo.
Thank you very much. 1.5 minutes, Mr. Niinisto.
Arvoisa puheenjohtaja, Life Plus on kenties rakastetuin.
Thank you very much. Life Plus has to be the most well-loved program of the European Union. I don't know whether the citizens love the program, but this is a really on-the-ground program which aims to protect the environment and contains projects which local authorities are very happy with. When I was Minister for the Environment, we had a joint program to protect an animal that's dear to our hearts, a small seal. And it's true that these programs helped this species to survive. There are now twice as many of them, so they're a lot better off than they were 10 years ago. So very fruitful program in that point of view. We're not just talking about mammals. Let's look at the state of the planet as a whole. We've learned that only 3% of nature in this world is virgin and untouched by human hand. There's a lot of work that we need to do. We need to stop global warming. And we also need to stop weakening biodiversity. Life was dedicated to protecting the environment, and now that 10% of the budget has to be set aside for environment actions, life is an example of how you can manage the environment. It's important not to damage it, and it's important to protect it. And all policies should help us to do this. Thank you very much, Mr. Nisto. 1 minute, Ms. Wisniewska.
Panie Przewodniczący, Panie President, Commissioner, LIFE is a program, the objective of which is to achieve environmental and climate objectives. It should generate new solutions. The objective is to guarantee just transition. The objective is to make sure it brings about change when it comes to European biodiversity strategy, for instance. But in order for this program to achieve these objectives, we have to have a very clear-cut conditions of assessing individual requests, to have transparency, to make sure that our experts work in a transparent way. Also, a geographical balance would be of utmost importance. Commissioner, have you noticed that in previous years the bulk of funds actually reached only a small group of member states? I hope that this time LIFE program will prove to be the most important instrument supporting environment and biodiversity, which is so important to us. It would be good if geographical balance was taken into account, and if this could be used as a tool to support just transition. It would be very important to take account of local conditions. It's very important, especially when it comes to implementation. Thank you.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wisniewska, 2.5 minutes. Mr. Kokalis.
Thank you very much, President. Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I welcome the agreement on the new generation of this fundamental program called LIFE on the environment and climate action, which is now in line with the ambitious goals in the European Green Deal and a 60% higher budget than before. Protecting nature and biodiversity are still at the heart of the program that will continue to provide funds for programs that will protect Natura 2000, but also projects linked to biodiversity. Now, this will create synergies with other funds in the EU, especially with the new CAP, which will have to contribute to achieving the farm to fork goals. Now, we will also be breathing new life into the cyclical economy, biodiversity, climate mitigation adaptation, and the energy transition. LIFE will support programs that will focus on energy efficiency, renewable sources, and small-scale projects. It will help with the cyclical economy by providing funds to recycling and recovery from waste. And of course, the whole issue of soil management and waste management will be eligible projects to achieve the goal of zero waste. In Greece, it will be Easter this weekend, as well as in other countries. This symbolizes the rebirth of nature. So this couldn't be a better time for us to present one more tool that will help with the green transition to European citizens. It will protect nature and therefore human life. I'd like to thank Mr. Torvalds, the rapporteur, but also all our colleagues, Mr. Ninisto, Mr. Vondra, among others, for the excellent way we've worked together. This was necessary in order to implement the European Green New Deal. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Herr Kollege.
Thank you, Mr. Kokalis. 1 minute, Mr. Comín y Oliveros.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Celebriamo che il programma LIFE in questa sesta fase ha fatto un balzo di bilancio.
Now, it seems that we've got this 60% higher budget, and we agree that a lot of the resources will focus on biodiversity, circular economy, and transition. Life is 100% necessary. We need it in order to be able to tackle the root causes of what is degrading the environment, but we also have to tackle indirect causes, our consumption patterns and habits. This means that we have to move decisively and look at the paradigm shift reflected in the Green Deal. All sectoral policies therefore become environmental policies, where human health depends on environmental health, but perhaps we're not demanding enough when it comes to rethinking the CAP on the basis of this new paradigm.
Thank you, Mr. Comín y Oliveros. 1.5 minutes, Mr. Spiraki.
Thank you very much, President. Commissioner Sinkevičius, ladies and gentlemen. The LIFE program, which we've agreed upon and which we're discussing today, is part of the flagship actions taken by the EU. Up to now, it has helped solve very serious environmental problems all over the EU. It was a trailblazer. It was really at the forefront of a way of bringing together different funds, which is something that we believe in. So I would like to welcome this and say that in this new LIFE program, the budget is 60% higher than the previous program. And since LIFE is now a valuable tool for regional and local authorities, we have to make sure that it supports programs that very clearly upgrade the environment and people's lives. Flexibility is one of the advantages of the LIFE program that brings it closer to citizens. So now it's an excellent opportunity to look at small projects, but which are important for local communities, providing support to renewable energy sources, waste management with an emphasis on the circular economy, protecting the biodiversity, and also looking at air pollution, because air pollution is a serious problem in my city in West Thessaloniki. We need a lot of targeted LIFE programs. We cannot achieve what we want in Europe and on the planet if citizens don't rally behind us. So LIFE is an important tool. We've got Orthodox Easter around the corner, so I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for delivering this tool to local and regional authorities.
Thanks, Ms. Spiraki. 1 minute. Gisil.
Sehr geehrter Herr
President, the LIFE program is an essential instrument for Europe's environment and climate policy. Since 1992, more than 4,500 projects have been funded. I'm glad that the new LIFE program and its goals are ambitious ones, more ambitious than ever. It's about protecting our nature, our biodiversity, about tackling climate change and producing more renewable energy. The new LIFE programme is simpler, which is good to involve Europe's regions. It boasts 3.5 billion euros and 1.9 billion euros for climate measures. 75% funding will be provided to certain projects. 5.4 billion euros for a forward-looking programme, a programme that we as the European Parliament were heavily involved in.
Thank you, Mr. Siedel. 1 minute, Ms. Alieva-Veli.
President, Commissioner, colleagues, the work on this proposal took a long time, but the result is very good indeed. Thank you to the colleague Torvalds. It was important to ensure that the Union's highly ambitious climate goals be supported by adequate tools for achieving the green transition. The LIFE programme is a key, effective and efficient tool to support Europe's goal to be a leader in sustainable economic growth and employment. The increased budget of the programme will help us to take quick and concrete measures. The programme is especially important for those countries which are at the beginning of the green transition, like Bulgaria, because it will provide them with much needed resources for innovation in environment protection, biological diversity, and also projects in energy efficiency and renewable energy. Today we are taking the first step towards a clean and circular economy which protects people and nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alieva-Veli. 1.5 minutes, Mr. Koos. Thank you very much, President, Commissioner. Ladies and gentlemen, the LIFE programme of the EU has been around since 1992, supposed to promote environmental programmes, so that was a good thing, that was a big success. Now that it's more targeted at climate, LIFE has been included in the Green Deal. I'm in favour of using means correctly as a householder, but against adding to the budget for climate. This is going to weaken our companies. They're going to put more tax on our workers. And these legal risks is something that we don't want. We are going to, in the long term, put the EU at a disadvantage as compared to other countries such as China. Furthermore, I doubt whether there will be a significant effect on the climate, even if there's a complete and global shift based on climate projects. We're not going to change the temperature of the globe very much. I'm all in favor of biodiversity, maintaining species and so on and so forth, but I'm against the Green Deal. Environment, yes. Biodiversity, yes. Bureaucratic and one-sided climate projects, no. Thank you. Thank you for Mr. Koos. Ms. Paulus, 1.5 minutes.
Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen.
Dear colleagues, Commissioner, we will need a lot of money to save our remaining ecosystems, and if we are going to restore and rewild 30% of damaged natural areas, it's good that there will be 10% expenditure on biodiversity and biodiversity promotion. That's laid down in the EU budget. That's a green success. But 40% of our budget, as before, will go towards the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy, and there aren't many criteria there. If we don't have a long-term vision, 50% of our lands will be poisoned. Today, we have a ruling from the German Constitutional Court. It says that if you do not protect nature and climate, that harms future generations. The same applies to the destruction of ecosystems, because if you destroy an ecosystem, it's often irreparable. Without these ecosystems, you don't have water you can drink, you don't have air you can breathe, and you don't have fertile land. Will the European Union be taken to court for ecocide? No, not if we act now. We must act now. The report of the EEA shows that the next decade will be decisive if we want to halt biodiversity loss. We therefore need binding EU goals and EU renaturing goals, and we need sufficient money in order to achieve those targets. I therefore call on the Commission and the Commissioner to turn the biodiversity strategy into real action and to come up with an ambitious renaturing programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paulus. 1 minute, Ms. Klotz.
Panie Przewodniczący,
President, colleagues, I welcome the interinstitutional agreement on life. I support the majority of the objectives, a circular economy, energy efficiency, and, first of all, biodiversity. But we have to say one thing. Climate objectives are very much emphasized in all of our speeches. However, we don't talk enough about loss of biodiversity. According to WWF, since 1970, we have lost 60% on average of mammals, fish, birds, reptiles. Through life, we have managed to finance many Polish projects, such as, for instance, the problem of waste, water waste, in the case of coal mines, among other projects. But unfortunately, since 2013, national allocations have not been based on geographical balance. If it was the case, we would definitely have many more requests from Poland. So I call on you to guarantee geographical balance. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Frau.
Thank you, Ms. Klotz. Ms. Modig, 2 minutes.
Kiitos, arvoisa puhemies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the rapporteur Niels Torvalds and all those who have worked on this. I think that this is a sterling result. So the increased budget is welcome. Life is an important part of these measures. I think that will help us raise the challenge we face today. It is vital to make sure that we don't have fragmented projects. We really want a coordinated approach that will allow for long-term funding. That is why the Multiannual Financial Framework has to have a specific sum allocated to this to ensure that we do long-term work to help the environment as well as biodiversity. One thing we definitely have to avoid is the loss of species. This is, the risk is a lot higher than we think, and we've got to act now. Biodiversity is important for its own sake. It will also help us fight against global warming. Seas and oceans and coastal areas have to be taken into account. It's important to be sufficiently ambitious. We have to find win-win solutions that will benefit the climate, economic growth and jobs. And I feel that the circular economy is an excellent example of this. Environmental policy and climate policy here in the EU is rather strange. I'm thinking, for example, about the interests linked to agriculture. And if we squander money and increase funds, then we have to make sure that we don't cause additional damage. But thank you very much for the excellent job done.
Vielen Dank, Frau Kollegin Modig.
Thank you, Ms. Modig. 1 minute, Ms. Todt.
Tisztelt biztos úr!
Mr. Commissioner, the LIFE programme has played an important role in European environmental policy for years, increasingly more in sustainability policy. However, I believe the LIFE projects often shed light on the contradictions of EU policies. I'd like to underline that environmental development projects do require centralised member state level coordination as these programmes cover several regions. These projects obtain their full potential if they are not isolated but are integrated into a network. Therefore, environmental development programmes cannot be successful without member state coordination. The success of environmental and sustainability policies depends on whether these policies are accepted by citizens. I believe that we have to provide EU-level information to citizens about these programmes, as these projects may offer extremely valuable help and a real added value. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Frau Kollegin Todd.
Thanks, Ms. Todd. 1.5 minutes, Mr. De Meo.
Grazie, Presidente. Signor...
Thank you very much, President. Commissioner, the new 2021 to 2027 LIFE programme includes a budget of over 5 billion in order to achieve environmental and climate objectives and targets. And part of this is allocated specifically to climate. It might seem a lot, it's 1.9 billion, but this has to look at risk mitigation and rein in climate change. However, constant global warming has led to an increase in sea level, which is very worrying. And for all coastal states, it leads to erosion, salt water entering the water table, and a loss of biodiversity. This leads to degradation of environmental, social, and economic functions of the coastline. This has affected the Adriatic Sea, among others. It is changing the sand dunes and coasts that define the Mediterranean Sea. We have constant erosion that is also jeopardizing the future of many jobs and economic sectors. LIFE is an important program, but we need more coordination, and we need to make sure that they dovetail with the other structural programs and make sure that regional member states and coastal states work hand in glove with the EU. We need to come up with innovative European solutions in order to improve the resilience of coastal ecosystems that will benefit fisheries, agriculture, the environment, and all coastal regions. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Herr Kollege.
Thank you very much, Mr. De Meo. For 1 minute, the next speaker is Ms. Schaldemose.
Tack.
Thank you very much. It's good and it's important for us to update the LIFE programme so it can continue to support sustainable nature projects. I've just visited 2 areas in Denmark that have been supported by LIFE. In Kerteminde, they got support to make the natural area accessible in a sustainable way. In this way, more people can have access to nature without ruining it. And in Middelfart, there's been centuries of building close to the small belt. With the support of LIFE, we've been able to restore the marine environment. That shows how important LIFE is to protect sustainable natural resources throughout Europe to the benefit of the green shift. It's important to continue to develop the program, and it's important for us to say that this program is making a difference to nature. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Frau Kollegin.
Thank you, Ms. Schaldemose. The next speaker on the list for 1 minute 30 is Mr. Holmgren.
Tack så mycket, herr talman.
Thank you very much, President. As we all know, LIFE has a great deal of importance when it comes to protecting ecosystems and the transition to a sustainable Europe. But I think what makes it so important is that we're talking about lot of financing. In 2014, we got a return of about 1.7 billion for investments in Europe, which is more than 4 times the life budget of the year. And therefore, it is pure economic folly that neither the Commission nor the Council or the groups to the right of us were in favor of increasing the budget for these essential measures. But obviously a lot of people can't or won't understand that ecology and economy go hand in hand, and that financing ecological measures is never a cost, it's never an expenditure, it's an essential investment in our society and in our future, something which helps us in the future. Anything other than creating a green and sustainable future is unsustainable.
Holmgren.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holmgren. The last speaker on the list is Mr. Engerer for 1 minute.
Grazie, President.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner, now is the time to replan our planet's future. This should be done courageously and with the utmost ambition in order to overcome the climate and the global environmental emergencies we face. Nevertheless, to do that, we need to show that same determination and commitment in our fight against the pandemic. I am convinced that our environmental organisations and citizens are committed to reach this aim. Today's debate is an important one. We are granting the environment a new direction with the LIFE programme, which is stronger than ever before for the coming 7 years. Our citizens and we demand cleaner air. We demand clean energy and intelligent transport. We demand biodiversity protection on land and for our seas. We demand a circular economy with waste reduced and changed to a resource. Europe is enriched with talented and creative organisations and citizens. Seize this opportunity and implement projects that offer a new greener future.